So welcome, our remarkable colleague, Kayla. We give thanks for your consistent visionary leadership. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by acknowledging our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Kayla, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Yeah, thank you, Victor. Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Isabelle, and I'm CEO of StartUP Canada. We're a national nonprofit that help connect entrepreneurs with tools, resources, and community. I'm joining here today from the Algonquin-Anishinaabe territory, also known as Ottawa, but our team is all across the country delivering programs and lots of different services these days.
Indeed. Setsi's been part of the startup family for a while now, and I can tell you your team is truly remarkable, and I give thanks for your collective leadership and all that you do for so many. So my next question is, what's inspiring you right now about your work? What has you curious?
Yeah, I am curious about a lot of things right now, Victor. It's an unusual time, both in the world, in entrepreneurship, in Canada. We've been doing this really incredible cross-Canada tour to help entrepreneurs access various supports. That's funding, that's incubators, mentorship programs, government supports, private sector, all of these various folks. And what that has both given me is an extra spring in my step that our work is incredibly meaningful and needed, and seeing it really come to life in person, I think, has definitely given me a sense of responsibility and hope as well, just hearing incredible stories across the country. It's also given me a lot of perspective. And often, we sit in our offices and we think that entrepreneurship is, it looks a particular way, or, people are experiencing a certain path. And actually just sitting down and having conversations with folks in Whitehorse, in, Halifax, in Calgary, and seeing these incredible Canadian entrepreneurs navigate really challenging circumstances. It gives you a moment for pause. It makes you grateful for your ability to contribute to their hopeful success, or make a really meaningful impact in their life in that moment. And it's just a reminder of the incredible ideas and visionaries and change makers that we have, that are changing all kinds of industries and building so many different types of businesses. And that breadth of experience is really beautiful to witness. So it's both making me curious around how we continue to support those folks, but definitely inspiring me and rooting me in the true purpose of StartUP Canada these days.
Indeed. That's remarkable. Congratulations. So
Thank
what
you.
challenges and barriers do you and your colleagues face? And what are some of the approaches or ways you're tackling some of these challenges?
Yeah, I think if I put on a bit more of my nonprofit hat as the leader of a scaling nonprofit, when we started about 4 years ago, when I first took over as CEO, we had 4 or 5 staff. Now we're about 20 with our contractors. There are beautiful parts of that, also lots of challenging moments in scaling a nonprofit, as everyone can appreciate. But I think for us, it's showing up meaningfully, scalably, making an impact across the country, but holding space for ourselves. Like, how do we actually do that in a way that doesn't give too much of each of us, that feels that we are, not only capable, but continuously fueled by that fire, but not exhausted and burned by it, right? Like, it's always that balance of not not, I'm, for lack of a better word, not burning out from these types of really important but massive undertakings that are physically demanding, emotionally holding space for all of these incredible founders. It's a lot for my team to handle. And as a leader, that's always challenging, to find the balance of creating that purpose and that energy and that bold leadership. And, there's so much that we could do. How do you temper that with what we should be doing and what we should be prioritizing, and making sure there's that balance there? But it ebbs and flows every day, right? It's something that we all experience as leaders running small organizations and large ones, but particularly in the nonprofit space, with just all of the uncertainty, with rising costs, with the talent challenges that everyone's experiencing. I think the nonprofit sector is having a very challenging time overall, and we see ourselves in that.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I had a remarkable conversation with Kathy, the CEO of the ONN, Ontario Nonprofit Network, and similar sentiments. There's so much to do. but bandwidth capacity and finding that fine line when you're playing a leadership role in the nonprofit sector is challenging. So definitely we need to lean on rest as a form of resistance, but also finding ways and means to really push when it comes to policy and moving things because we're serving some of the most vulnerable constituents in the country, and you're driving ecosystems and entire sectors. So we give thanks for your leadership. So my next question is, do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work that you'd like to amplify or share?
Yeah. I think priority number one for me is reducing redundancy. That there, especially when resources are tight, when we see huge pressing global issues that need to be tackled first, how do we as a collective focus on prioritization, but also not duplicating the efforts where others are already playing? How do we amplify and focus on where we all best serve and where we can make the most meaningful impact? For me at Startup, that is in showcasing the incredible offerings of the entire ecosystem of support. Instead of building net new programs or net new initiatives that require so much horsepower and that initial sparky energy, how do we actually just squeeze more juice out of the existing lemons of the ecosystem? And then where we see more redundancy, maybe advocate for some change, because there are spaces and gaps that we all collectively observe. So I think number one, it's reducing redundancy. I think two is um, finding the right tone of urgency and lack and just the idea of hurdles and challenges and that with opportunity. It's, I feel even myself, I kind of ping pong back and forth. I'm a very half glass half full kind of person, but I also recognize there's such immense pain and trauma and struggle happening in parallel to all these beautiful wins that we see in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. So I'm working on figuring out how do we maintain optimism, but a practical, realistic view on where things actually do need to improve, and how do I use my own personal positioning and the brand of Startup Canada to champion the right message at the right time and not be either too negative or too positive and find that space. So yeah, reducing the redundancy and then focusing on the right message for the right audience.
Incredible. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So how do you feel about the future of entrepreneurship and startups in Canada?
If you asked me an hour ago, I might feel differently than in an hour in the future. I feel very optimistic. I mean, that's how I'm built. I'm definitely somebody who tries to look at that positive. I also feel a tremendous weight in the country at the moment, and if that's folks trying to raise capital, if those it's those that are just trying to start their first business that have no idea where to start and are feeling incredibly strapped financially, or the risk feels immense, and the very practical realities of what it is to actually start a business. It is very demanding, it is lonely, it is consequential to every part of your life, right? That like these types of decisions have a lot of consequences, both positive and negative. And so I think in that space, there's a lot of um, there are a lot of cherished moments I have this year of unbelievable positivity and optimism that we've seen in entrepreneurship, but also like gut punch. Whoa, this is hard. This is really demanding. And especially on the mental health side, right? Like we saw so much of that conversation coming during the pandemic. We were bringing it into meetings, we were checking in with people around us in a very different way. And I've actually seen that maybe a divesting away from that in the last year or so, which now is when a lot of founders are actually struggling the most, because it's that impact that is sort of accumulating over years and years of difficulty. So yeah, I think I'm optimistic, but we need to be anchoring support for humans as a whole and have their business be part of that. And yeah, just be very gentle on each other, and especially for those that are taking an extreme amount of risk. Like we need to both champion founders that are taking this on, practically equip them with support, and buy their stuff. Like ultimately at the same time, we have so much power in supporting these businesses with amplifying their offerings, to purchasing power and all these different variables. Taking that concrete action gives me more optimism and positivity. Like even in the last week, we were showcasing each year for the holidays, Startup Canada staff get to pick very small businesses that they want to buy from as their gift from Startup Canada. And that is beautiful. I learn of all these incredible products and services, and then I get to, support them directly using the purchasing power of the organization I lead. That makes me optimistic.
That's incredible and such a good practice in terms of purchasing power. Sometimes we think about purchasing power from the lens of social procurements, but I think even in just cooperative economics in terms of the sector, purchasing from each other, procuring services could be done more intentionally. So I applaud you and your colleagues for taking that bold step over the holidays. Congratulations, that's remarkable. So my second last question: what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues at Startup Canada?
Yeah, the ultimate goal for me is that Canada is the best place to start a business. Not only because there's the opportunity for you to really create the business of your dreams, but there is an ecosystem of support that scaffolds you and helps you along that journey. And you know exactly who the right person is to go at each of those junctures. That also means equitable access to all of those players, that it is not, gated, that there's not these secret, clubs, or you need a particular introduction to get into these various groups, that it is very democratized and that access is open to anyone who wants to start a business. Not everyone's going to be successful. Even in a perfect situation, not every business is meant to start and grow and thrive. That's just business, right? We can't sort of forecast that as success, but that the opportunity and the energy is bolstered by that true scaffolding across any early stage founder. So I would love to see that. I'd also love to see more varied voices in entrepreneurship. We often see in the news or online the same handful of incredible Canadian characters that have done beautiful work in business, and yes, they've gotten great recognition, they've been celebrated, awarded, wonderful. Who are the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of other businesses that also have really compelling stories? My team is really focused on finding those folks. I'm not sure how they do it all day and finding these incredible businesses, but there's a variety and a genuine curiosity, I think, that my team really exemplifies, and that showcases the diversity of businesses we have in Canada, and yeah, and it makes a more meaningful impact to go to those folks than it is just to put all of our eggs in fewer, company baskets. So yeah, and I love that kind of vision of knowing so many different entrepreneurs. When someone says, who's your favorite founder? What's your favorite business to support? You've got an inventory of maybe 30 different businesses from all across the country, versus just saying, there's this one tech startup that I know that came from Canada.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and viewers?
I think the power of partnership, and Victor, you manifest that, and you are, such a beautiful illustration of, ecosystem players coming together, the strength of that, and just the productive value of it inherently. That we understand where each other's working, where the challenges might be, how do we practically support each other. I've loved that energy that you bring into all these conversations, and the gratitude you anchor every call, every check-in, with an authentic human recognition, followed by the work stuff. We've all got to do the work stuff, but we're human beings leading organizations, running businesses, navigating a lot of uncertainty in this entire world. And I love that you really lead intentionally that way. So maybe my final note is a thank you to you, Victor, and to your team at Setsi.
That means the world to me. I appreciate the kind words, the warm sentiments, and the authenticity that you consistently bring to this work as a leader, solidarity, and just your vision for a greater startup ecosystem across our great nation. So once again, we applaud you. And as always at Setsi, we close all things, including this interview, by acknowledging once again our creator, by acknowledging our ancestors, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Kayla, for all that you do for so many. We really appreciate you.
Right back at you, Victor.
Indeed.